We're really excited here to launch the day at the University of Louisville. PNC is the one that made it possible, so I want to thank my good friend Chuck Denny here for making it possible and including this facility in Steve's day. I think when Chuck and I talked about this event, we thought it was very appropriate that we start here at the university. Very deliberate. Because when we think about the third wave is going to be powered by human potential. And universities are about developing human potential. I want to just go back to the founding of one of our schools here at the university, the School of Engineering. It was established in 1925, 91 years ago. And it was established, in fact, it's in its charter, on the model of cooperative education. Now, to go back to 1925, think of what university environments were like. And I think, however they were managed correctly because we are where we are today as a society because of education. But think about what that culture environment was like. It was about seats of learning where people studied about the history, the culture of humanity, developed new knowledge, but it was in a very traditional environment of learning. You were isolated, you were in a monastery, and you were proud of it. You didn't really want to know what the world around you was doing. That was the idea of a university. And I think back to the founding dean of our engineering school, the Speed School of Engineering. And I think, boy, did he take a risk. He said, no, for good engineering education, we have to connect with our community as part of our curriculum. We have to go out there, get our students out there to connect with the community. It's a risk he took, perhaps at great peril to himself. And here we are 91 years later, and I can tell you that that model is one of the best things that we did at the University of Louisville. So learning from that and looking forward, I think all of you will agree, or you wouldn't be here today, that the world is changing. We have to ask, how do we empower the students of today, both present and those in the pipeline, those in elementary school, middle school, and high school, to move forward in their careers so that their careers are not just careers, but they're a passion. It's something about their lives. And that's what this experiment is about. It's about breaking walls. It's about opening doors. It's about making connections, thinking differently about how we connect. It's not that our engineering education or any other education is compartmentalized into 4 years of a rigorous curriculum taught by professors. That's no longer the future. It's about connecting with companies and great partners like General Electric and United Underwriter Laboratories, having their engineers and their professionals work with our students while they are learning. And it's not about engineering. It's about all our students. It's about how our students in business can be empowered. It's how our students in arts and sciences can be empowered, and how they can work together across disciplines. It's about breaking down walls. And that's what this facility is about. You're sitting actually in the engineering garage, which is supposed to be the meeting point for students of all ages, for professionals from companies, and for community members, so that our students truly become passionate about whether they're learning art, whether they're in business, or whether they're in engineering, or whether they're in law. It doesn't really matter. They come together to be passionate about solving problems for society and creating opportunities. And now I'm going to turn this over to the person we brought in to lead us in the next phase of our development of this facility, David Adams, the CEO of IPR.
Well, the first thing you'll notice is I'm not quite as tall as Neville, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit. But good morning, and welcome to the IPR, and welcome to our Innovation Showcase. So we're very excited that Steve Case is with us this morning, but we're also equally excited that you're going to be able to see Third Wave in action as you get an opportunity to tour these just wonderful facilities. So here at the University of Louisville, we're evolving this innovation ecosystem, and an innovation ecosystem is an evolution. We here at the University of Louisville supply the fuel for the entrepreneurial endeavors for our collective community. So what makes this unique? Why the IPR, and why this in Louisville, Kentucky? Well, one, Neville touched on it. It's this connection to this major university which has tremendous expertise in advanced manufacturing and, as importantly, entrepreneurship. We also reside in a region of 14,000 manufacturers. We're within a day's drive of 2/3 of the United States, making this a world-class logistics operation. And we're located in a major city that provides ample resources. When you think about where entrepreneurs want to be, they want to be in places where high concentrations of expertise can be found. It's an ideal formula here. So why does all this matter? Think about what's occurring today. We've got this collision going on, a collision that none of us have ever seen between manufacturing, technology, and innovation. And not only is the collision occurring, but it's occurring at a pace that's unprecedented. Think about it. Small companies can now effectively compete with larger ones. The competition in your industries, it's not your only competition. It's coming from outside the industry as well. And for the first time in our lives, you can actually buy something that's mass customized at a mass-produced price. In this rapidly changing environment, innovation clusters or hubs are needed that bring these groups together. The IPR is that hub for the maker community. It provides access to talent, networks worldwide, equipment, technology, and facilities. The resources here support everything from student-led startups to Fortune 500 companies, providing the opportunity for these organizations to leverage this maker expertise infused with technology and innovation. The ability dramatically reduces the time from idea to market, resulting in more shots on goal. It changes the game dramatically. GE's first build is a working example of a large company leveraging their size while injecting a tempo of speed into a culture of risk. First build is a Steve case study of how a company can significantly reduce the time from idea to market and also simultaneously reduce their cost. It's disruptive, and it's happening right here in Louisville, Kentucky. This same opportunity exists for all of our community. With the February opening of the UofL Additive Manufacturing Competency Center, this became the first of its kind in this country training center for additive manufacturing and advanced manufacturing techniques. Most importantly, for companies that want to learn how to leverage this innovation capability, now's the time, and Louisville is the place. As Steve writes in his book, The Third Wave, An Entrepreneur's Vision of the Future, the success of a company will depend largely on the partnerships its leadership can forge. The University of Louisville forges those partnerships, both physically and virtually, and engages students, faculty, business, and community leadership to advance entrepreneurship and positively alter the ways we live. Steve Case's presence here today in Louisville is a testament and a validation of our efforts to date. I invite you to join our growing community and ride the third wave here at the University of Louisville. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Chuck Denny. He's the regional president of PNC Bank, and it was his passion and vision that made having Steve Case here today a reality. So please join me in thanking and welcoming my friend Chuck to the podium.
Well, we should make no mistake about it that Steve Case is here because he wants to be here. You know, Steve could be anywhere in the world right now, but he's chosen to spend a day with us in Louisville, Kentucky. And, you know, I don't know a lot of you in this room. I wish I knew you better. But right now, we're all connected by one thing. We're here today for a very transformative event in each of our lives. I have the honor of introducing Steve. I've got some words I'm going to read. I've tried to memorize most of them, but I didn't get them. I want to get them right. But I want to just talk to you just for a second about what this means for us. You know, Louisville's been a successful city since 1780. We were founded by entrepreneurs because there was a waterfall in the Ohio River. We've done many great things together as a community. We've never lost our drive, our spirit, our ability to compete. Right now, we're on the campus of an ACC university. I want everybody in this room to think, 5 years ago, how many, if anybody thought that would be possible? I don't see any hands. I mean, just think about that. Think what we've accomplished together as a community. Won't be long that we'll be competing with the Dukes and the Virginias, the Georgia Techs. We're just going to rise up that chain like we always do as a community. All we need is a chance to get in the ring and fight, right? And that's what we do. Today's very special. We have, I think, we're so blessed as a city. There's not a better human being on the planet today to talk to us than Steve Case. His book, I know you've read it. If you're not, you're going to have a copy. It's an easy read. It's a great read. Don't fail to read this. The Third Wave. It's really a manifesto on how to go forward. Steve's been there from the beginning. Steve Case is one of the world's most accomplished and successful entrepreneurs. And just pause there for a second. We're in the presence of one of the world's most successful entrepreneurs. Steve Case made the internet possible. He got most of the world online, right? Not only America online, the world online, through co-founding America Online back in 1985. Steve's gone on to do many wonderful things in his career. He co-founded Revolution, his investment firm in Washington, D.C. But prior to that, you know, America Online was the first internet startup. At one time, it accounted for over half of all the online traffic in America. And it became the largest IPO and the most successful internet company of its day and the highest performing stock in the 1990s. That's who we have with us today. Now I'm going to go back to my reading. Excuse me. Steve also founded, as the chair of Startup America Partnership, an initiative launched by the president to accelerate high-growth entrepreneurship throughout the nation. He's also a member of the Presidential Ambassadors for Global Entrepreneurship. He also serves as the chairman for the Case Foundation, which he established with his wife, Jean, in 1997. You know, Steve's been crisscrossing America, traveling over 4,000 miles in a Rise of the Rest tour of 19 cities. We're the 20th. And through his decades of interest in technology and information and the internet, and his experience hands-on, not only with Silicon Valley and Washington, D.C. and New York, but these great Midwestern and Mid-Southern cities around the country that he spent a week visiting on his Rise of the Rest tours. He's got such hands-on information that he's decided to write a book about it in The Third Wave, which is an exceptional read. I've got an audio book, so I recommend that. Read the book, but listen to him talk to you in the car, too. It's pretty cool. So it's a very special day for us today. It's a thrilling day. Steve's here because he wants to be here. He believes in us. And we've got a great task ahead of us. So please give it up for Steve Case.
Well, thank you, Chuck, and thank you all for being here. This is a great example of why the rest is rising, why cities like Louisville have a bright future, because they're really focusing on startups, focusing on embracing and championing and investing in entrepreneurs, and doing it with partners, having a great university, a great iconic American company like GE, a great bank like PNC, all rallying together to kind of take Louisville to the next level is why I'm so optimistic. Let me just set it up briefly why we're doing these Rise of the Rest tours, and specifically why we're in Louisville today. It's worth remembering that 250 years ago, America itself was a startup. It was just an idea. And it went from being a startup to the leader of the free world with the leading economy because of the work of entrepreneurs. First in the agricultural revolution, then in the industrial revolution, more recently in the technology revolution. That is the story of America, and it's the story of cities like Louisville. And if we're going to continue to be the most innovative entrepreneurial nation in the world. We have to continue to support our entrepreneurs and lean into the future. And we can't just do that in Silicon Valley or New York City or Boston. We need to do it all over the country. And it's happening all over the country, as you know, sitting here. But that story is not being told. And the kind of innovations that are happening in places like Louisville are not broadly understood. And to be honest, there are a lot of people in communities like Louisville who are watching on the sidelines, not really jumping into it and engaging to support entrepreneurs and take Louisville and to the next level. So that's the purpose of these visits. And the Rise the Rest is really designed to shine a spotlight on great entrepreneurs in cities like Louisville and drive more capital and more attention to those cities and to those entrepreneurs. Last year, 75% of venture capital went to 3 states: California, New York, and Massachusetts. 75%. The other 25% went to 47 other states, including Kentucky. And that does not reflect the distribution of great entrepreneurs with great ideas. And if we're going to kind of have a strong economy across the country and an innovative nation, we have to even out the playing field across the country and support entrepreneurs in places like Louisville. So that's the setup. Briefly on this, the third wave. The first wave of the internet was really building the on-ramps and getting people connected. When we started AOL 31 years ago, only 3% of people were online. And they were online 1 hour a week. By the end of that first wave, from sort of call it 1985 to 2000, went from an idea nobody knew about or cared about to being something people couldn't live without. That was the first wave. The second wave, the last 15 years or so, has been building apps and services on top of the internet. Facebook, Twitter, Waze, Snapchat. You can kind of list your own apps. It's been the app economy. It's been mostly about software, and that will continue to create a lot of momentum. But the third wave is going to be integrating the internet in seamless and pervasive, sometimes even invisible ways throughout our lives, and in the process change in pretty profound ways and disrupt some pretty significant industries in healthcare, in education, in agriculture, in energy, in transportation, in food. But it's going to require a different mindset, more around partnerships, which is why this first build is such a great model for what's needed in the third wave. And this innovation is going to happen not just on the coast, but in the middle of the country, if people in the communities like Louisville really do rally to be part of this movement, part of this future. And I think Louisville is perfectly positioned to be a leader, to rise again. It was strong in the agricultural revolution. It was strong in the industrial revolution. Maybe lost a little ground in the last half century on the technology revolution, but has an opportunity to gain ground again in this third wave. And some of the companies that have been created here, like Humana, obviously there's a merger now with Aetna, and people are wondering what the implications are. But there are a lot of smart people, many of whom now have some money, that could be part of this next wave of innovation in health tech. There's a lot of expertise here around agriculture. There's a lot of expertise here around logistics. There's a lot of expertise here around advanced manufacturing. So the question is, how does this community rally together, say this is a moment, seize the moment, everybody get on the playing field and try to figure out a way to lift this community. What I found traveling around the country, I've been to Detroit and Pittsburgh and Kansas City and St. Louis and Madison and Minneapolis and New Orleans and Atlanta and Nashville, all kinds of great cities have had great histories but also great futures because of what's happening in these startup communities. The best predictor of how a community like Louisville will be faring 25 years from now is watching what's happening today in the startup community. Because these big companies, these Fortune 500 companies, don't just pop out of nowhere. They start as startups. And some of them, while little and fragile and risky, end up being the Humanas, end up being the Yums, end up being the GEs, started by Thomas Edison, one of America's greatest inventors more than a century ago. So if cities are coasting, are complacent, are resting on their laurels, are saying, look at all the interesting companies we have, our Fortune 500 companies, they're going to lose ground. You've got to constantly reinvent yourself. And the best example of this is Detroit. 75 years ago, Detroit was Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley 75 years ago was apple orchards. Detroit was the hottest, most innovative city in the country, growing like crazy. The car was the hot technology of the day. What happened? It got complacent. It lost its entrepreneurial mojo. In the last half century, 60% of the population of Detroit has left. And a few years ago, Detroit, once Silicon Valley, went bankrupt. That's the arc of what happens when you're rising or falling. Now, the positive is Detroit, particularly the downtown area, is really on the move, and it's on the rise, and I think its future is bright. But that's a reminder that you can't be, as a community, be kind of coasting. You can't get complacent. You have to constantly reinvent yourself. So I think this is a moment for Louisville. It's a moment for the country. How are we going to be able to rally in a community like Louisville to support the next generation of ag tech entrepreneurs and health tech entrepreneurs and advanced manufacturing entrepreneurs, and use things like First Build as a model for how to get different organizations, a big university, a big company, kind of working together to usher in innovation, like the pizza oven I saw or the cold brew coffee I saw. This went from an idea to a reality in less than 6 months, and products are going from idea to reality in less than 6 months. And that's exactly the kind of pace of innovation and agility and speed that's necessary to kind of win in the future. So Louisville's well positioned. It's got a lot of talent. It's got a lot of infrastructure. It is well positioned for this next wave, this third wave, but it's not going to happen on its own. It's going to require everybody in the community stepping up in whatever way people can, whether it be just celebrating and championing entrepreneurs. When you hear their ideas, say, that sounds really interesting, not that sounds really crazy. Maybe you can be a mentor, maybe you can be a customer, maybe you can be an angel investor, maybe you're working for a big company and you can help them, help the startup be for some kind of partnership. Everybody in this community says this is a moment and rallies around the entrepreneurs in this community. Louisville will be on the rise, more capital will flow here, and more talent will come here and come home. I don't know a lot about Louisville, but I do know this. There are a lot of people, including some of your kids, maybe even some of your grandkids, that grew up here and left here because they felt the opportunity was better somewhere else. So how do you send the signal that the opportunity now is here and the time is now, and the opportunity to be part of this renaissance, this next wave of Louisville's future is now, and that people should move back here and investors should come from California, New York, other places to invest here. But it starts with all of you. It really does start with how do you create that sense of possibility, that sense of community, that sense of collaboration, and lift Louisville to the next level. So I'm very optimistic about this. I think the rest is rising. I'm really bullish that in this next wave, this third wave, innovation will be more broadly dispersed, and the middle of the country, which some derisively talk about as flyover country, will emerge as really a hotbed of innovation in agriculture, in energy, in transportation, in food, in some of these sectors I mentioned. But it really requires everybody in the community stepping up, saying this is important, saying this is a moment, and joining hands to take Louisville to the next level. So it's great to be here. We have a great day. We had a great time last night with the governor, a former entrepreneur, this morning with the mayor, a former entrepreneur, and they're great companies and that are being kind of mobilizing to be part of this future. Hopefully you'll be part of it as well. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Chuck.